Today we are completing our study of the book of Joshua. It's the sixth book of the Bible, and today is sermon number 8, dedicated to this book, and number 71, beginning with Genesis. My section for today is the book of Joshua, chapter 22, 23, and 24. Last 3 chapters of the book. And there is a number of topics there, but there is one that is represented in other passages as well. Therefore, it is one that Bible is dedicating some time, and we need to know about this. My title is God's Story, tribe of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. That's what we will be talking about. It's mostly in chapter 22 of the book of Joshua. So what is it about these 2.5 tribes that sparked the interest of Moses to write this down, and then Joshua and God himself, that he is dedicated a number of pages to describe these 2.5 tribes. Let's find the first time they are mentioned together as a group, as a separate, distinct group, and see the story. It was during the time of Moses, when Moses was still alive. Let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 32, verses 1 through 5. Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had a very great number of livestock. And they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. So the people of Gad and the people of Reuben came and said to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the chiefs of the congregation, Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Himrah, Heshbon, Eliel, Sebam, Nebo, and beyond. The land that the Lord struck down before the congregation of Israel is the land for livestock. And your servants have livestock. And they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. So this is the first time these tribes are mentioned together. What are they asking? The question that they pose, do not take us across the Jordan, let us live here on the eastern bank of the river. The question itself presupposes that they were supposed to go across. So they are asking for exclusion. And we need to ask the question, what is special about Jordan River that it needed to be crossed if everything was according to the initial plan? So what are the borders of the promised land? The book of Numbers, chapter 34, verses 1, 2, and 10 to 12. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you for an inheritance, the land of Canaan, as defined by its borders. The promised land was the land of Canaan. It was promised to Abraham, confirmed to Isaac, then to Jacob. And the people of God have been anxiously waiting for the time to inherit this land. This land has borders, boundaries. And this is the description. The text describes the southern border, the western border, the northern border, and the eastern one. And this is the description, verses 10 through 12. You shall draw a line for your eastern border from Hazar Enan to Shepham, and the border shall go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of Ain, and the border shall go down to reach the shoulder of the sea of Chinnereth on the east, and the border shall go down to the Jordan, and its limit shall be at the Salt Sea, or the Dead Sea. This shall be your land as defined by its borders all around. Let's take a look at the map to visualize the place. So, about in the center, there is this blue line which represents the Jordan River. There is a body of water up, and then there is a larger one down, which is Dead Sea. So, the land of Canaan is everything between River Jordan and Mediterranean Sea that you see on the map. Anything east of Jordan River is not the promised land. But as you can see, there are 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh, that are on the right side, if you look at the map, which is on the east of the river. So this is the issue. These 2.5 tribes, they request for them not to settle in the promised land. Let's think about this for a moment. For 400 years, the people of God have been waiting for this to happen. And now, when they are on the brink of entering, 2.5 tribes, they say, please let us stay here. We refuse to settle in the promised land. Let's continue reading the book of Numbers, chapter 32, verses 6 through 15. But Moses said to the people of Gad and to the people of Reuben, shall your brothers go to the war while you sit here? Why will you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land of the Lord that the Lord has given them? Your fathers did this when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Echol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the people of Israel from going into the land and the Lord had given them. And the Lord's anger was kindled on that day. And he swore, saying, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt, out of Egypt, from 20 years old and upward, shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. None except Caleb the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord has gone. And behold, you have risen in your father's place, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger that the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will again abandon them in the wilderness and you will destroy all these people. How could you characterize the reaction of Moses? What kind of reaction is it? Very forceful, right? Despair, I hear. Very stormy reaction. So he's very outspoken. He is angry, right? And he immediately recalls that something of this sort happened already. How is it called? A déjà vu. Once they went up to this point, and there were 12 spies who scoped the land and brought a report, brought some fruits, and said, yes, the land is good, but it's impossible to enter. It's impossible to conquer. And because of the false and bad report that they spread around, the people decided to do the following. The book of Numbers, chapter 14, verse 4. And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. So when Moses hears that these people are asking not to cross the Jordan, he immediately has these flashbacks in memory and says, you are, the brood of evil people. You are trying to repeat the history. Why? Why? So Moses makes a couple of statements. First of all, he compares their request with the events that resulted in 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. And he says, the same could happen again. And God could forsake you for good. And then there is a very important statement, very interesting one. Verse 7, he says, you discourage the heart of the people of Israel from going over into the land that the Lord has given them. What does it mean to discourage someone from doing something? What would it typically involve? Talking, right? Saying something, saying, hey guys, it's not a good idea. Let's stay here. It would involve active participation. Discouraging someone usually would entail a conversation. But Moses is talking about something else. How would they discourage people not to cross the Jordan? By not going themselves, by staying in the place. So it's the influence of example, of personal example. If there is one group of people that's doing something, others see it and they are influenced. For example, some teenage girls in one of the shows on Netflix or you name it, suddenly begin to show their belly button area all around, lower, higher. And all of a sudden, half the country is bearing their belly buttons. And then 90%, and then only Christians are left that are still covering modestly their body, right? Or no? You see, trends, they are created by what? Behavior. And oftentimes you don't need to encourage someone or to discourage someone. You just be. Or you just do. We influence each other. People are social creatures. So when someone does something, it's not only about him or her. It's about others who are shown an example. So Moses says, if you stay here, if you refuse to cross over the Jordan, it creates an influence, and others will want to do the same as you. And then verse 15 says, you will destroy all these people. You will destroy all these people. How? I would never do such a thing. I would never bring harm to my brothers and sisters, right? If you just not follow God's will, this could be enough for you to destroy others. Do you see it? You will destroy all these people because they will see your example, they will want to replicate it, and as a result, they will perish. So, this is the first time when these 2.5 tribes are mentioned as a group. They don't want to enter the promised land. Now, let's see what they say. Numbers 32, verses 16 through 24. Then they came near to him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. But we will take up arms, ready to go before the people of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones shall live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until each of the people of Israel has gained his inheritance, for we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has come to us on this side of the Jordan to the east. So Moses said to them, if you do this, if you will do this, if you will take up arms to go before the Lord for the war, and every armed man of you will pass over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then after that you shall return and be free of obligation to the Lord and to Israel, and the land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure sin will find you out. Build cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep, and do what you have promised. So they propose a compromise. Those who are able to fight will cross Jordan, but our families and our livestock will stay here. And Moses agrees. Let's take a deeper look at this conversation. First of all, what is their motivation? Why do these people want to stay somewhere else and not in the promised land? What is their outmost value in life? What do they value most in this story? Material possessions. Raising flocks and herds is our business, and business is the most important thing. So when we see the place with opportunities, why would we go anywhere else? No. Yes, the Lord did promise something to Abraham, but look at the opportunities. So they are motivated, first of all, by gain. They want material, financial blessings, financial success. This is obvious. But then when you look closely, there is something even more profound here. Verse 16. When they explain their plan, this is what they say. We will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. So what are their priorities? What do you see? What's most important for them? Their business. You see, we will build sheepfolds here and cities for our little ones. And then when Moses replies to them, verse 24 says, he says to them, build cities for your little ones and folds for your sheep. You see, he switches the sequence around. Do you know people like that? Business, money, job, career, opportunities, money, and sleepless nights. 20-hour-a-day job. And then 15, 16 years later, you look at your child and he or she has been raised by someone else. There was no time to take him for a walk. There was no time to play with the kid. There was no time to go camping. There was no time to read a book because business, earning, money, and so forth. It's striking, but this is what their priorities are. Again, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for the little ones. So business is first, family, kids is second, and the will of God is third. And Moses says, no, you need to go first, the will of God first. This is what God wants you to do. Build cities and then build sheepfolds for your livestock. So the Bible is full of these stories. Do you remember another one? A prominent figure that made a decision based on financial gain, compromising the spiritual, the moral side. The name is Lot, Abram's nephew. There was also a lot of flocks, and he chose the best pasture for them, up to the city of Sodom, though Sodom was a very evil city. You could read this to refresh in your memory in the book of Genesis, chapter 13. The choice of Lot is motivated by material goods. And at the result, at the end, he lost everything. Everything. So this is the issue. This is the problem. But God respects the free will of men. Moses agrees to their plan. So if we can take a look at the map again, God's original plan was that the promised land where the 12 tribes would settle is between Mediterranean Sea and River Jordan. But this map, this political map, is different. Why? Because people want it so. So God respects the free will of a person. And the political map of Israel did not look the way God originally intended. But every choice, every act of free will has consequences. So let's take a look at what happened next to these 2.5 tribes. First of all, during the time of Moses, there is a hint. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33, verses 1 and 6. This is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the people of Israel before his death. To each tribe he gave a blessing, which is fitting and describes their future as well. So, verse number 6, let Reuben live and not die, but let his men be few. So, how do you find this blessing? Live. It sounds strange. What is it? What is this blessing trying to counter? Death. You see? So there was a danger that Moses knew about. And looking into the future, he says, let him live. This is the first place. There are these anxious notes about the future of this tribe. Now, let's move to the time of Joshua. When he became the leader, he reminded these 2.5 tribes about the condition. We could read this in chapter 1 of the book of Joshua, verses 12 to 16. We will not read this, but basically he says, remember the condition. You need to go with us. You need to cross the river. You need to fight with us. And after you have fulfilled your obligation, then you could return and live on the eastern bank of Jordan River. And verse 16 says, and they answered Joshua, all that you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. So they promise to fulfill the terms of the agreement. Do you remember if they did? Did they go with the rest of the tribes? Did they participate in dividing the land? Did they keep their promise? Here's what the Bible says. Chapter 22, the book of Joshua, chapter 22, verses 1 through 6. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh and said to them, you have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and you have obeyed my voice in all that I have commanded you. You have not forsaken your brothers these many days, down to this day, but have been careful to keep the charge of the Lord your God. And now the Lord your God has given rest to your brothers, as he promised them. Therefore, turn and go to your tents in the land where your possession lies, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Only be careful to observe the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God, and to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments, and to cling to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. So, did they keep their promise? Yes, they kept their promise, fulfilled their duty, and received a blessing. Now, they live on the eastern side. Everyone else lives on the other side of Jordan River. Let's see what will happen, how the history will unfold. Chapter 22, the book of Joshua, verses 10 through 12. And when they came to the region of the Jordan that is in the land of Canaan, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by the Jordan an altar of imposing size. And the people of Israel heard it said, Behold, the people of Reuben and the people of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built the altar at the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region about the Jordan, on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. And when the people of Israel heard of it, the whole assembly of the people of Israel gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. How would you characterize this kind of reaction of Israelites? It's very like the one that Moses had, right? Also, very stormy reaction. They are wanting to go to war with these 2.5 tribes. Why? Why? The altar. What's the issue with that? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verses 13 and 14. Take care that you do not offer your burnt offerings at any place that you see, but at the place that the Lord will choose in one of your tribes. There you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I am commanding you. There was a clear command. Only one altar for sacrifices. And it was already built by dimensions given by God and out of materials specified by God to Moses. And now they're building another one. They have built another one. Leviticus chapter 17, verses 7 to 9. So they shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to goat demons, after whom they whore. This shall be a statute forever for them throughout their generations. And you shall say to them, any one of the house of Israel, or of the strangers who sojourn among you, who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to the Lord, that man shall be cut off from his people. So it was very serious. No other place to offer sacrifices. So when Israelites find out that these ones, they build an altar, immediately there is a suspicion they are going to break this commandment. So they want to go to war. Now, before that, they decide to send a delegation of leaders to talk to these 2.5 tribes. And they do, and this is what they say. The book of Joshua, chapter 22, verses 21 through 25. So they basically say, no, we are not going to use this altar for sacrifices. We want for it to be a memorial, a sign, so that in case in the future, those who live on this side of the Jordan would say to our descendants, you are somewhere else, you are not in the land of God, then we will say, look at this altar. It shows that we have common roots. We are the same. We also have the right to serve your God. So this was the purpose. But when they describe this, there is a very profound phrase that they utter. Verse 25. The Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you people of Reuben and people of Gad. So you see, they understand that it was not arbitrary. It was God who said, these are the boundaries of the promised land. God made the river Jordan a boundary. And they decided to live outside of that boundary. And immediately it creates a problem. Yes, they were not going to offer sacrifices there, but did they have the right to build an altar? You see, the altar is already there. It has been built. So we see that when there is this deviation from the plan of God, it immediately, as soon as they returned, it immediately creates problems, suspicions, issues, explanations are needed, and so forth. But in addition to that, do you remember the story when God said, make a serpent of bronze, put it on a banner, and everyone who is bitten by a snake, when looking at this image, will be healed. It was God's commandment to erect this copper, bronze statue. Do you remember what happened centuries later with this object? People began worshiping. They called him Nehushtan, and they would offer incense and serve this object. So, these tribes, they put themselves in a position where a similar thing could happen. Settling outside the promised land is fraught with problems immediately. Then, when we trace the history of these 2.5 tribes later, we find other issues as well. The book of Judges, chapter 5, contains a song sung by Deborah after a victory over enemies of children of Israel. And in that song, she is rebuking some of the tribes for their reaction. This is what it says. Judges, the book of Judges, chapter 5, verses 15 through 17, and then verse 23. The princes of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar faithful to Barak. Into the valley they rushed at his heels. And then she says, among the clans of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. Why did you sit still among the sheepfolds to hear the whistling for the flocks? Among the clans of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. Gilead, that's their area, Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan. And Dan, why did you stay with the ships? Asher, another tribe, sat still at the coast of the sea, staying by his landings. And then verse 23, curse Meroz, says the angel of the Lord, curse its inhabitants thoroughly, because they did not come to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty. So, when there was this national danger, or the danger of national magnitude, and God wanted to give deliverance to the people, these tribes, they did not join the fight. You see, they stayed on the other side. They did not come to rescue. What was their motivation? The Bible says, why did you sit still among the sheepfolds? They are still mostly about their business, about profit. And when there is a real danger of your brothers perishing under enemy's sword, it didn't bother them. So we can see that they saw themselves as separate. It's not our problem. They created a separate entity, and they did not come to help. Then later, 1 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 3, then Nahash the Ammonite went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead. their territory. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Make a treaty with us, and we will serve you." But Nahash the Ammonite said to them, "On this condition I will make a treaty with you, that I gouge out all your right eyes, and thus bring disgrace to all Israel." The elders of Jabesh said to him, "Give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers through all the territory of Israel. Then, if there is no one to save us, we will give ourselves up to you." So, when this territory was besieged by an enemy, they are asking for help, but the way that they phrase this is very telling. Do they expect help? If there is no one to save us, we'll give ourselves up to you, so you could gouge our right eye. So you see, they feel that there is not much hope, that other tribes would help them. Why would they think this way? Because of prior history. They were not eager to help others. In that case, others did come and help them. But this passage, it shows that there was already disintegration of the tribes of Israel. You see, because they lived on the border, they were vulnerable in terms of being conquered. Not sure if anyone will come to their rescue. The way that God originally planned was this: Jordan River is a natural boundary. It's a natural fortification to protect the people of God. Even today, in today's war history, crossing rivers, even insignificant ones, is hard. It's a natural fortification. But they were not protected. They lived on the other side of Jordan. Lastly, last passage, 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verses 25 and 26. "But they broke faith with the God of their fathers, and whored after the gods of the peoples of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. And he took them into exile, namely the Reubenites, the Gaditites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Halach, Habor, Hara, and the river Gozan to this day." They lived on the other side. Living outside the promised land, they came into constant contact with the Gentiles. And they experienced influence from the Gentiles. They were the first ones worthy of being exiled. So that these 2.5 tribes, God says, they broke faith with the God of their fathers and began worshiping other gods. And these 2.5 tribes were the first ones to be conquered by Assyria. And they were taken to Assyria, therefore losing their livestock, all their material possessions, the very reason that they chose to be outside. But in addition, and along the way, they lost their faith, they lost their future. Because text says, to this day. So these 2.5 tribes never returned. They assimilated in Assyria. They disappeared. They no longer exist. So, today's passage has many lessons. As a result of the willfulness and wrong priorities of these people, the history of God's people was different. Political map was different. Events were different. History does not move as the Lord originally planned if people choose something other than the will of God. Today's sermon is God's story, tribe of Reuben, Gad, and half-tribe of Manasseh. Some of the lessons. The freedom of choice is real. We all have it. We all have it. But the consequences of our choices are also real. Those who make choices against the will of God, they will experience utter loss and tragedy, as was with Lot, with these 2.5 tribes, and with many others. If material possessions is the utmost value for a person, if that's the motivating factor, it leads to loss of everything, material possessions included. But along the way, health, marriage, kids, and life itself. So there is enough in this passage to think about for everyone today. Amen.